You don't notice the moment it happens. For the Valorans, it begins as nothing more than a flicker, a low hum from a beacon meant to send harmless signals into deep space. A scientific experiment, a curiosity, nothing more. But then in the silence between stars, something answers. At first they believe it's a malfunction. Screens bloom with unknown signatures, readings spiking beyond anything their instruments should detect. A shape resolves from the void, its hull metallic, angular, and unmistakably foreign. Not Valoran, not Craxus, something else, something ancient and primal in its presence. The word spreads like wildfire through the station corridors. Deathworlders. The legends had always spoken of them, rumors traded on forgotten frequencies. Humanity. A species born on a planet so hostile it shaped them into predators unmatched across the galaxy. Creatures of war. Survivors of poison, plague, and endless conflict. A people who thrived where most would perish, and now, against every probability, they had been summoned. Inside the alien ship, Captain Elias Reed stands with a calmness that masks the weight pressing on his chest. He had not expected this call, yet here he is standing before a people who stare at him as if he were both savior and executioner. His voice cuts through the static-laced comms. "This is Captain Reed of the Terran Union. We received your signal, and we came." The Valorans hesitate. Their council chambers echo with fear. To invite humanity in could be to invite doom. But to reject them, when the Craxus fleet circle like vultures, could be to invite extinction. Their beacon had been a cry for help, and help had come, in the form of a predator. Officer Winters, Reed's second, leans close. "They're terrified of us, Captain." Reed nods slowly. "Good. Fear means they understand. Now let's show them we can be more than what they expect." For the Valorans, this first contact is a collision of myths and reality. They study Reed's eyes, too sharp, too calculating. They notice Winter's stance, the way her hand always seems ready to reach for the weapon at her side. Even without moving, the humans radiate an energy that unsettles the air around them. These are not diplomats born of gentle worlds. These are predators disguised in uniform. But then, something shifts. Reed does not threaten. He does not demand. Instead, he asks. He listens. He observes the panic in their voices, the tremor in their leaders' tone when they speak of Craxus raids, of destroyed colonies, of civilians slaughtered without mercy. And in his silence, in his stillness, they catch a glimpse of something unexpected. Restraint. The Deathworlders have teeth, yes. But they do not bear them. Not yet. In the back of the chamber, Chief Scientist Trell watches with fascination rather than fear. He studies Reed like he would study a living equation, searching for the balance hidden inside the predator's gaze. He leans to a colleague and whispers almost reverently, "Perhaps the old stories were wrong. Perhaps they are not monsters." Still, the tension coils tighter. Outside the station, more Terran ships hover at the edge of Valoran space, their silhouettes like silent wolves waiting for the signal to strike. Every Valoran instinct screams that this is a mistake, that no good can come from inviting predators into the fold, and yet, desperation is a powerful thing. The Craxus will not wait. Their fleets are already gathering, their threats already echoing across the stars. So when the First Minister finally speaks, her voice trembles not with weakness but with the weight of inevitability. "Captain Reed, we called for help, and though you are feared, though you are Deathworlders, we cannot face this alone. If you are here to stand with us, then welcome." For the first time, Reed allows the faintest ghost of a smile to touch his lips. He bows his head not as a conqueror, but as an ally. And just like that, history pivots. A beacon meant only for study becomes the spark of an alliance that will shake the galaxy. The Deathworlders have answered the call, and the galaxy will never be the same. The Valorans had thought one human ship was unsettling enough, but when the fabric of space ripples and 5 massive silhouettes emerge from hyperspace, their courage collapses into silence. The ships arrive not timidly, but with deliberate precision, sliding into formation like blades drawn from the same scabbard. Their hulls bristle with weaponry, scars of past battles etched across the steel like trophies. Even before their weapons power on, the message is clear. The Deathworlders do not arrive alone. They arrive as a pack. Inside the Valoran Council chamber, the air grows cold. Windows tremble from the vibration of the ships locking orbit around the station. Counselors shift uneasily, whispers cascading across the chamber like a tide. 5 cruisers. Not scouts, not diplomats, warships. Admiral Helena Torres stands at the center of her flagship, the Dauntless. Her presence radiates control, the kind only a commander forged by decades of conflict can hold. She listens to Reed's report through the comms, every word measured, every detail stored. Craxus fleets circling, Valorans desperate, a beacon answered by accident or by fate. When her image finally flickers onto the Valoran screens, the counselors almost recoil. Torres does not smile. She does not soothe. She looks at them the way a predator looks at terrain before battle, calculating angles, searching for weaknesses, measuring whether they are prey or partner. This is Admiral Torres of the Terran Union. Your distress beacon was received. We have reinforced your position. Her words are not a request. They are a statement, but beneath that steel lies something more dangerous than arrogance, confidence born of memory. Because Torres has seen the Craxus before, and unlike the Valorans, she knows exactly what is coming. She orders a secure channel. Reed and Winters step into the chamber's side alcove, their faces illuminated by the pale blue hologram of the Admiral. Her voice drops, no longer for Valoran ears. Proxima Centauri 4, she says quietly. Do you remember the reports, Captain? Reed stiffens. Everyone remembers Proxima. It had been humanity's blood baptism into galactic conflict, a colony world caught between expansion routes. The Craxus descended without warning, slaughtering settlers, burning the skies red. Humanity fought back with fury, clawing victory from the jaws of annihilation. The records of that battle had been sealed, deemed too brutal for open archives. Now Torres confirms it. We fought them once and we survived. More than that, we taught them to fear us. Winters swallows. And now they've returned, Torres nods. This time we finish what they started. When the private channel closes, Reed and Winters exchange a glance heavy with unspoken truth. To the Valorans, the Craxus are a nightmare just arriving. To humanity, they are an old enemy, the predator that once tried to cage the wolf and failed. Meanwhile, the Valorans watch with wide eyes as the Terran fleet repositions itself like a steel phalanx around their fragile station. One ship had been intimidating. 5 are overwhelming. Their defenses, meager at best, pale beside the sheer weight of human engineering. Chief Scientist Trell cannot look away. Their hull density, their formation discipline, even their shielding layers. He shakes his head in disbelief. They are warborn. Every line of their design screams survival, but not everyone feels awe. Some counselors mutter warnings. If the humans defeat the Craxus, what stops them from turning on us? Have we not summoned a wolf to our doorstep? Reed hears the doubt but does not address it. He lets the silence stretch, lets the Valorans stew in their fear because fear can be reshaped. He knows Torres' strategy well. Show strength first, then reveal mercy. And so the humans wait. The Valoran First Minister finally gathers the courage to address Torres. Her voice trembles, but she forces the words out. Admiral, if what you say is true, if you have faced the Craxus before, then perhaps together we might survive. For the first time, Torres's gaze softens, if only by a fraction. She inclines her head, not as a predator, not as a conqueror, but as something far rarer in the galaxy. A soldier offering alliance. Stand with us, Minister, and you will not face them alone. Outside, the 5 human cruisers hold their positions, silent guardians of a fragile trust. The wolf pack has arrived, and the galaxy shudders in anticipation of what happens when the predators of Earth bare their fangs once more. The council chamber is a storm. Every Valoran leader, every advisor, every scientist speaks at once, their voices colliding in panic. The arrival of the humans has shattered the fragile order of their government. Some see salvation, others see annihilation, and the Craxus threat, looming larger by the hour, presses like a weight on every word. The First Minister raises her hands for silence, but it is Trell, the chief scientist, who speaks first, his voice carrying the calm weight of reason. We cannot ignore the reality before us. The Craxus are not hypothetical. They are massing fleets preparing to strike, and we cannot face them alone. Murmurs ripple through the chamber. Trell steps forward, his gaze sweeping across the assembly. Yes, humans are dangerous. Yes, they are Deathworlders. But have you not seen? They came because our beacon called. They did not destroy. They did not seize. They listened. That is more mercy than the Craxus have ever shown. A counselor rises, her voice trembling. And what happens when the Craxus are defeated? What stops the humans from turning their fangs on us? Have we traded one master for another? The fear is palpable. For the Valorans, survival has always meant calculation. Choosing the lesser danger, avoiding direct conflict. To embrace humanity feels like placing a hand in the jaws of a predator. And then, unexpectedly, a human voice breaks into the debate. Officer Winters. She had been silent until now, standing beside Captain Reed like a shadow. But when the arguments twist into paralysis, she steps forward, her boots echoing against the polished chamber floor. Her words are not polished diplomacy, they are raw, unvarnished truth. You're right to fear us, the room stills. Dozens of Valoran eyes turn toward her. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Our storms drown cities, our quakes swallow continents, our diseases burn through nations. And still we endured, still we fought. That's what a death world does, it forges survivors. It forges predators. So yes, you should fear us. Her gaze hardens, sweeping across the council. But you should also understand this. When we hear a distress call, we answer. When we see the helpless, we protect. It is instinct. It is who we are. You called for help. And here we are. The silence that follows is absolute. For the Valorans, her words strike deeper than any promise of alliance. It is not manipulation. It is not rhetoric. It is the sound of truth from a species that does not need to lie about what it is. Trell leans forward, his voice almost reverent. They are both destroyers and guardians. Reed finally speaks, his tone measured but carrying the quiet authority of command. The Craxus will not spare you. They never do. Your choice is not between us and peace, it is between us and extinction. Humanity has fought them before. We know how they think, how they fight, how they die. If you stand with us, you stand a chance. Alone, you will fall. The council fractures along its fault lines. Some voices cry for caution, others for boldness. The First Minister listens to it all, her hands trembling slightly on the edge of the podium. She feels the weight of history pressing against her spine. Finally, she rises. Her voice is quiet but unyielding. The beacon was not meant to summon them. Yet summon them we did. Perhaps fate has chosen our allies for us. She turns toward Reed and Winters, her eyes still shadowed with fear, but also with the faintest glimmer of resolve. Very well. We will stand with humanity. A collective breath escapes the chamber, half relief, half dread. The decision is made. The Valorans will throw their lot in with the predators of Earth. In the observation deck high above the chamber, Trell whispers to himself, almost in awe. The galaxy has changed tonight. Whether for salvation or damnation. And far beyond the chamber walls, unseen by all but the watchful human sensors, the Craxus fleets continue to gather, tightening their noose. The Council has chosen their allies. Now they must live or die with that choice. The stars above Valoran Station flicker with menace. For hours, the humans and Valorans have waited, every sensor fixed on the dark void where the Craxus fleets were last reported. And then, like shadows peeling from the black, they arrive. 6 warships, their hulls jagged, their formation tight. They drift into view like vultures circling a corpse. The station's comms flare alive. A voice cuts through, harsh, grating, each syllable like steel scraping across glass. This is Commander Vrock of the Craxus Dominion. Valorans, we have tolerated your experiments long enough. The chamber falls silent. Counselors lean forward, eyes wide, their fear raw and unhidden. Vrock continues, his tone shifting, sly and poisonous. You play with forces you do not understand. And now you summon predators to your doorstep. Deathworlders. The word spits from his tongue like venom. Do you not know what they are? Humans devour all they touch. They will burn your skies and enslave your children. Already they coil around your station with warships. Already they prepare to claim what is yours. Some Valorans flinch. The poison works. The fear spreads, the Craxus commander presses harder. But we offer peace. Reject the humans, surrender the beacon, and the Craxus will spare your world. You have our word. A counselor slams his fist on the table, panic cracking his voice. He speaks truth. We have called monsters to defend us. What if the humans are worse? Before the panic can consume them, a new voice cuts through the chamber. Calm, cold, human. Captain Reed. Commander Vrock. The Craxus voice falters for the briefest second. surprised to hear the human reply. Reed's tone is measured, deliberate, each word a knife. Your word is worth nothing. We know your kind. We fought you before at Proxima Centauri IV, do you remember? We do. The chamber stills. Even the Craxus channel goes silent, as if the memory of that battle drags ghosts into the present. Reed leans closer to the comm, his voice dropping to a predator's growl. You slaughtered civilians. You burned colonies. You thought humanity would break. Instead, we buried you in your own blood. And if you want to test us again, Commander, you'll find we've only grown sharper. The tension crackles like electricity. Brock hisses back, fury overtaking his sly tone. Arrogant primates. You think your Deathworld births strength? It births only madness. You are disease, and the galaxy will cleanse itself of you. The First Minister steps forward, her voice trembling but clear. Enough, Craxus, you speak of peace but carry only war. Humans, you carry fear but also protection. Our choice is made. We will stand with the Terran Union. The declaration lands like thunder. The Craxus commander snarls, all pretense of diplomacy gone. Then you will burn with them. The transmission cuts. Outside the viewport, the Craxus fleet shifts into attack formation, engines blazing. 6 warships, bristling with weapons, inch closer to the fragile Valoran station. Inside, the council chamber erupts again, fear cascading into chaos. But this time, the humans do not flinch. Admiral Torres' voice echoes across every channel, steady and unyielding. Reed, return to the station. Prepare defenses. We hold the line. Reed nods once, his jaw set. Winters checks her weapon, her eyes already hardened for what's to come. The Valorans watch them in awe. Predators not retreating from the storm, but walking straight into it. Chief Scientist Trell whispers almost to himself. As alarms begin to wail through the station, the Craxus tried to poison us with fear. But fear in the hands of humans becomes something else entirely. And outside in the darkness of space, the predators circle each other. One with deceit, the other with patience. The galaxy holds its breath. The first strike is only moments away. The Valoran station trembled under the weight of alarm sirens. Crimson lights pulsed across the elegant corridors, casting long shadows over walls once built for peace, not war. Outside, the void churned with menace. The Craxus fleet moved like a school of predators circling wounded prey, jagged silhouettes gliding ever closer, their weapons arrays blooming with power. 6 warships against 1 fragile station and a single Terran vessel. And yet the humans stood tall. Captain Reed's boots echoed sharply as he strode into the command chamber. His presence was a gravity all its own, pulling frantic voices into order. Cultural Officer Winters followed at his side, her face composed, her movement steady, radiating calm in the midst of chaos. First Minister Dola turned toward him, his tall frame trembling, voice breaking under the storm of fear. Captain Reed, we cannot fight them. Our defenses are ornamental. They will tear us apart. Reed's eyes locked on the tactical display, watching the 6 hostile signatures creep across the grid. His voice was iron. Then we won't let them reach you. Humanity has faced predators before. We know how they think, how they hunt, and how to stop them. General Mick scowled, his tone laced with doubt. But you are 1 ship against 6. Even your people cannot. The chamber shuddered as Reed's comm badge crackled alive. Admiral Torres's voice cut through, sharp as a blade. Fleet Dauntless arriving in 20 minutes. All ships form on Intrepid's vector. Defensive screen around Valoran Station. Captain Reed, prepare ground coordination. You are point contact for all operations. Relief swept through the Valorans like air after suffocation, but it mingled with dread. They had invited this storm unknowingly, and now the skies darkened with warships they had never imagined. Reed turned back to the council. You wanted peace, but peace requires guardians. Let us stand as your shield. All we ask is trust. Trell, the chief scientist, raised his voice. His large eyes blinked rapidly, the Valoran sign of determination. I built the beacon. My mistake drew this danger. If the humans offer protection, I say we give it. The chamber stilled. Fear had not vanished, but something new had taken root. A fragile spark of resolve. On the hangar decks of the Intrepid, preparations erupted into motion. Marines strapped into armor, their visors flashing with tactical data. Engineers rushed along the shuttle bays, loading emergency supplies and deploying drone relays. The rhythmic thrum of engines powering to combat readiness echoed like a drumbeat of war. Security Chief Ramirez barked orders, her voice cutting through the din. Check your weapons. No mistakes, no second chances. These people are looking to us for survival. Don't you dare let them down. Winters moved among them, quietly observing. She wasn't a soldier, but her role was no less vital. Her keen eyes caught details others missed, the tremor in a recruit's hand, the unspoken fear hidden beneath practiced routines. She offered a hand on a shoulder, a calm word, the kind of steadying presence that could mean the difference between hesitation and resolve when the void turned red with fire. Meanwhile, on Valoran Station, the citizens gathered in communal halls, whispering prayers to stars that had never before betrayed them. Mothers clutched children. Elders tried to soothe the panic with songs of gentler days, and yet through the windows they could see the human fleet emerging one by one. Steel-gray warships, angular and scarred, cutting through the void with predatory grace. To the Valorans they looked terrifying, hulking beasts of war. But beneath their fear was awe. For the first time, they began to wonder. Perhaps the arrival of these so-called Deathworlders was not a curse, but a shield gifted by fate. As minutes bled away, the distance between predator and prey collapsed. The Kraxus fleet angled in, weapons hot. The humans closed ranks, the void bristling with tension. Captain Reed stood on his bridge, eyes locked on the stars. His voice carried across the comms, steady, unflinching. All hands, hold the line. The Valorans called for help, and help is what we are. The crew responded with a unified roar. The fleet aligned, and in the silence before the first shot, the galaxy itself seemed to wait. The storm was about to break. The void erupted. The first Kraxus salvo lanced through space, scarlet beams tearing across the black. The Valoran station shuddered under the assault, its fragile shields flaring like soap bubbles straining against a storm. Screams echoed through its corridors as power flickered, but the humans did not flinch. Return fire, Admiral Torres ordered, her voice a whip crack across the fleet. The dauntless and defiant roared to life, their cannons unleashing streams of plasma that lit the darkness like artificial suns. The Intrepid slipped between the behemoths, smaller but faster, cutting sharp angles across the enemy's line. Human ships didn't glide, they hunted every maneuver a predator's strike. The Kraxus fleet answered with fury. 6 warships surged forward, weapons blazing. Their jagged hulls radiated menace designed to terrify as much as destroy. They aimed not just at the human fleet, but at the Valoran station itself, a symbol of weakness they could exploit. Shields at 60%. Ramirez barked aboard the Intrepid as the ship bucked under impact. Sparks rained across consoles. Captain Reed stood firm, voice calm amidst the chaos. Helm, thread the gap. Bring us under their lead cruiser's guns. Target engines. Make them bleed speed. The Intrepid dove like a hawk, slipping beneath the belly of a Kraxus destroyer. Cannons roared. Explosions rippled along the enemy's hull, engines stuttering into flame. The massive vessel veered off course, colliding with its wingmate in a shower of sparks. On Valoran Station, the council chamber shook. Ministers clung to tables as feeds broadcast the battle live. For the first time, they witnessed humanity in its truest form. Not scholars, not diplomats, but predators unleashed. Trell's voice quavered, equal parts fear and awe. They fight as though the void itself is their home. First Minister Dola whispered back, perhaps for them it is. The Kraxus pressed harder. Their weapons carved gouges into human shields, burning scars across the fleet. But the humans adapted. They moved with terrifying coordination, ships weaving in formation, covering each other's flanks. Where the Kraxus struck with raw brutality, humanity answered with precision, every shot deliberate, every maneuver calculated. On the Dauntless, Admiral Torres leaned forward, eyes locked on the tactical grid. They're trying to encircle us. Bring the third wing wide, force their rear to split. A dozen human frigates peeled away, spearing through the gap like wolves cutting stragglers from the herd. The Kraxus line fractured, 2 vessels forced to break formation. Push them, Torres snapped. Don't let them regroup. Inside the Intrepid's hangar, Marines prepared for the unthinkable. Boarding alarms pulsed. Shuttles and drop pods lined the decks, engines humming. Winters walked among them. Her soft words a counterpoint to the thunder of war. Remember, you are not just fighting for Earth, the Valorans are watching. Show them what humanity means. Ramirez grinned sharply, slamming a magazine into her rifle. What humanity means is that we don't lose. The Craxus commander Vrock bared his fangs on the flagship bridge. Kill the station. Break their spirit. Let the humans choke on failure. Dozens of missiles streaked toward the Valoran station. But before they could strike, a wall of human interceptors surged into the path, guns blazing, shredding the warheads into harmless shards of fire. Pilots screamed battle cries across the comms as they sacrificed shields, even hull integrity, to protect the fragile jewel behind them. On Valoran Station, millions watched in stunned silence. Not one missile reached them. Back aboard the Intrepid, Reed's voice carried calm fury. Lock torpedoes. Aim for their flagship. Targets acquired, Patel confirmed. Reed's gaze hardened. Fire. 2 torpedoes streaked across the void, slipping through fractured Craxus defenses. They slammed into the flagship's port side. The explosion lit the void in a sunburst, tearing metal and fire across its jagged hull. The Craxus flagship reeled, smoke and debris billowing into the stars. A cheer rose from human comms. The battle was not won, but for the first time, the predators from 2 worlds, the fragile Valorans and the hardened Deathworlders, felt the same surge of hope. The war had truly begun. The void burned with wreckage. Human and Craxus ships dueled in blazing arcs, plasma fire streaking across the black. Yet even as the Craxus flagship reeled from torpedo strikes, its commander had prepared another weapon, one more insidious than brute force. Small, angular pods detached from Craxus cruisers, their engines dark, invisible to most scanners. They darted through the chaos like shadows and latched against the hulls of human frigates, destroyers, even the Valoran station itself. Boarding parties. On the Intrepid, alarms wailed, multiple hull breaches. Patel shouted. We've got boarders in sections 12 through 14. The ship shook as the Craxus pods drilled into the corridors, disgorging armored warriors with serrated blades and plasma carbines. Captain Reed didn't hesitate. Seal bulkheads. Marines to intercept. Ramirez, you're with me. The halls erupted in fire. Human Marines met the Craxus head-on. Weapons roaring in tight corridors that magnified every sound into thunder. Sparks flew as blades clashed with rifle butts, blood smearing steel floors. Ramirez carved a path forward, her rifle barking in controlled bursts. She slammed a Craxus warrior into the wall with brutal efficiency, snarling as she pulled the trigger. Welcome aboard. But the real danger wasn't just on the Intrepid. On Valoran Station, panic spread. The alien boarders had landed in the agricultural rings, cutting through unarmed civilians like a harvest of terror. The Valorans scattered, their frail bodies no match for the invaders. In the council chamber, feeds showed the slaughter in horrifying detail. Ministers cried out, some begging to surrender, others demanding immediate evacuation. Dola gripped the table until his knuckles whitened. If we surrender now, they will slaughter us anyway. We must stand, Trell trembling whispered. But how? We are not made for this. Then, over the chamber speakers, Winter's voice rang clear from the Intrepid's comms. You're not alone. Humanity is here. Hold the lines and we'll hold them with you. The humans responded with brutal precision. Dropships launched from the Defiant and Dauntless, Marines pouring into the agricultural rings. They fought in the fields among alien crops, tall reeds burning as plasma fire lit the skies. For the first time, Valoran civilians saw Deathworlders up close in their element. Not gentle diplomats, not teachers or advisors, but warriors forged in fire. A Valoran farmer cowered behind a stone wall as a Craxus raider loomed over him. Before the killing blow could land, a human Marine leapt into view, rifle blazing. She stood tall, shouting over her shoulder, "Get him to cover, move." The farmer obeyed, stunned at the sheer ferocity directed not at him, but for him. Yet amidst the battle, betrayal struck. Deep within Valoran Station, power grids flickered. Doors sealed in odd places. Security feeds cut out. An unseen hand was guiding the Craxus boarders. On the Intrepid, Patel cursed as new data scrolled across his console. Captain, we've been compromised. Someone inside the station is feeding them access codes. Reed's jaw tightened. Find the leak. The answer came from Winters, her voice edged with grim certainty. It's not human. One of the Valoran Council is collaborating. The room went cold. As Marines fought tooth and nail, the truth became clearer. Betrayal had cracked the Valorans long before the Craxus arrived. Fear had driven one of their leaders to side with the invaders, hoping survival could be bought with treachery. But humanity had no room for half measures. On the battlefield, Torres' voice thundered across the fleet. We hold, no matter the cost. Every station, every corridor, every world. And hold they did. By the end of that cycle, Craxus corpses littered the halls of the Intrepid and burned among the station fields. Marines dragged the wounded clear. Civilians huddled together in awe of the humans' defiance. But the betrayal still lingered in the air like poison. For in the shadows of the council chamber, a minister who had sworn loyalty to his people hid trembling hands stained not with blood, but with treason, and the humans were already hunting for him. The fires aboard Valoran Station had barely dimmed when the whispers began. Every council minister avoided the other's gaze, their silken robes damp with sweat. The chamber still echoed with the screams from the agricultural ring, the faint smell of burned ozone lingering like a scar. The Valorans were not used to war. But the humans? They carried war in their blood, and they would not let betrayal go unanswered. On the dauntless, Admiral Torres stood before the hollow display, her sharp gaze pinning the Valoran envoys like prey. Behind her, the tactical grid replayed the Craxus boarding maneuvers, highlighting sealed doors, false security overrides, and corridors left deliberately unguarded. This wasn't random, Torres said flatly. Someone on your council opened the gates. Murmurs rippled through the delegation. Trell shook his head furiously, voice cracking with fear. No Valoran would ever side with the Craxus. We hate them. They butchered our colonies. But Torres didn't blink. Hatred is cheap. Survival is expensive. Someone thought they could buy it. Silence. Heavy. Accusing. Meanwhile, on the Intrepid, Ramirez and Patel traced data spikes through the comms grid. Winters paced behind them, her presence steady as stone. Signal routing matches ministerial access codes. Patel muttered. Whoever it was, they had top clearance. Winters stopped cold. The traitor sits in the council chamber. Ramirez slammed her fist on the console. So we're bleeding out here and one of their own's been handing knives to the bastards? Her rage mirrored the mood of every Marine who'd fought tooth and nail in those burning fields. The betrayal wasn't just against the Valorans. It was against humanity, too. Back on Valoran Station, suspicion erupted like wildfire. Counselors hurled accusations, voices rising, fingers pointing. Minister Kyle, a gaunt figure with silver patterns etched across his skin, raised trembling hands. We cannot tear ourselves apart, not now. The humans saved us, yes, but if we fracture, the Craxus win without firing another shot. Dola, the first minister, leaned forward, eyes narrowed. You speak of fracture, Kale. Perhaps because you know something we do not. The chamber fell silent. Kale's throat bobbed, his voice faltering. I did what I had to. The Craxus promised. They promised our people would be spared if I helped them bypass your human defenses. I thought he never finished. The chamber doors slammed open. Marines in black armor stormed in, rifles leveled. Ramirez strode at their head, eyes cold and merciless. Thought wrong. Kale froze, every line of his body sagging under the weight of exposure. The other ministers recoiled, some weeping, some snarling. To them, Kale had not only betrayed their species, he had revealed the deepest terror at the heart of Valoran society. That when pressed to the edge, one of their own would sell them all. Torres's voice rang from the comlink overhead. Council of Valor, you will decide his fate. But understand this. On Earth, treason like this is answered with fire. The Valorans hesitated. They had no history of such trials. No framework for betrayal. To them, conflict had always been something distant, theoretical. Now it had a face. Kale broke, collapsing to his knees. I only wanted to save us. You don't understand. The Craxus are death incarnate. We cannot fight them. Winter stepped forward, her voice calm but cutting like a blade. You're wrong. You can fight. You just needed someone to show you how. She turned her gaze to the rest of the council, her words striking like hammer blows. This is the choice before you. Follow his path of surrender or follow ours, and fight until the stars themselves go dark. The chamber erupted, not in dissent, but in rising determination. Trell lifted his head, no longer trembling. Dola stood, his voice resonant. We will not kneel. Not to the Craxus. Not to fear. Kale's shame will not be ours. The decision was swift. Kale was stripped of his station and cast out, his pleas echoing unanswered. For the Valorans, it was a brutal lesson. For the humans, it was vindication. Outside the chamber, Ramirez muttered as Kale was dragged away. Deathworld lesson number 1. You don't bargain with wolves. You become one. As the traitor's screams faded into silence, the Valorans took their first step onto a path humanity knew all too well. Not of peace, not of comfort, but of survival through fire. And in that moment, the alliance was no longer fragile. It was forged. The traitor's screams had barely faded when the stars themselves seemed to darken. Long-range sensors lit up across the fleet. Craxus ships, dozens, then hundreds, slid from hyperspace like knives pulled from a sheath. Their formation stretched across the void, blotting out constellations. The wounded skirmish before had been nothing more than a probe. Now the true fleet had arrived. On the Dauntless, Admiral Torres stood silent, her jaw set. Every officer on the bridge felt the shift. This was no longer a defense skirmish. It was war. Estimate? She asked quietly. Patel's voice carried from the Intrepid. At least triple our numbers. Their flagship, larger than anything we've cataloged. The Valorans, listening through secure feeds, trembled. The images of jagged ships filled them with despair. Dola's hands shook as he whispered, "That is extinction made flesh." But Torres only leaned closer to the tactical grid, her eyes blazing with the fire of a Deathworlder. "No. That is a challenge." The Craxus commander Vrock broadcast across the system, his guttural voice dripping contempt. "Surrender the humans. Hand us their fleet and we will leave your station intact. Refuse and your skies will burn." For a heartbeat, the council chamber wavered. Old habits of fear gnawed at them. But then Trell rose, his voice no longer trembling. "We do not bargain with wolves." A silence hung heavy. Then across the human channels, Ramirez's laugh cracked like gunfire. "Now you're learning." Preparations began at once. Human crews reinforced shields, calibrated weapons, and prepped every fighter. Marines restocked ammunition and sharpened blades, readying for the brutal inevitability of boarding combat. But something new stirred as well. In the agricultural rings and industrial bays, Valorans stepped forward, not fleeing but volunteering. Farmers, technicians, scholars. They took up hastily modified rifles trained under human Marines who barked orders like forge hammers shaping metal. Winters walked among them, her voice steady. "Fear doesn't vanish. You use it. Let it sharpen you. That's the human way. That can be your way too." For the first time, Valoran eyes held not only dread, but resolve. The Craxus fleet advanced, darkening the stars. On the human bridge, Torres gave her final command. "All ships, hold the line. This storm belongs to us." And as the void lit with fire once more, humanity and Valorans together braced for the war that would decide not just their survival, but their place among the stars. The silence before the first volley was unbearable. In the void between fleets, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the storm broke. Human ships roared forward, engines flaring like blue suns. The Dauntless and Defiant led the charge, unleashing lances of plasma that tore through the first Craxus formation. Explosions blossomed across the void, brief suns that flared and died in silence. But the Craxus answered in kind. Beams of searing energy slashed into human shields, shredding escort craft. A destroyer near the Intrepid took a direct hit. Its hull ruptured, spilling fire and bodies into the void. Reed's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. "All batteries, return fire. Protect the station." The Valorans watched in awe from their command center. Their delicate hands hovered over consoles as they relayed targeting data and boosted shield frequencies, their voices trembling but firm. For the first time in their history, they were no longer observers. They were combatants. Admiral Torres stood at the center of chaos, her voice calm as steel. "Hold your lines. Break them by attrition. Deathworlders do not yield." On her order, squadrons of human fighters streaked into the Craxus formations like swarms of angry wasps, weaving between enemy fire. Some were torn apart instantly, but others broke through, planting torpedoes that erupted against enemy hulls. Winters, stationed aboard the Intrepid, guided Valoran officers through the madness. "Breathe. Focus. Every second you hold them off buys lives." Her words steadied trembling hands, turning fear into function. Then the enemy flagship moved. It dwarfed even the Dauntless. bristling with weapons that glowed like molten suns. Its first volley struck and an entire human cruiser vanished in a bloom of fire. Gasps echoed across every comm channel, but Torres only raised her hand. "Mark that ship. Every gun we have, target it." Dozens of human vessels shifted in unison, their combined fire converging into a single blinding spear of light. Shields cracked, armor screamed, and for the first time, the Craxus flagship staggered. Across the galaxy-spanning battlefield, hope sparked. In the Valoran chamber, Dola's voice trembled, not with fear but with awe. "They fight as if the void itself bends to their will," and Trell whispered what every alien in that room now understood. This is why the galaxy calls them Deathworlders. The Craxus flagship reeled, but it did not fall. Instead, it adapted. A guttural order echoed across their fleet, and new ships surged forward. Not war cruisers this time, but boarding craft, bristling with hooks and drills meant to pierce hulls. Captain Reed's eyes narrowed as alarm screamed. "They're coming in close. Prepare for boarding." The first impacts hit moments later. The Intrepid shuddered as enemy claws dug into its hull. Within seconds, the corridors filled with the sounds of steel boots and guttural roars. Human Marines met them head-on. Ramirez led the charge, plasma rifle blazing, his soldiers fighting with the fury of predators defending their den. The Craxus were larger, armored, vicious, but humans were faster, harder, honed by a world where hesitation meant death. On the Valoran station, chaos erupted as smaller raiding craft broke through. For the first time in generations, Valorans found themselves staring down true predators. Trell's voice rose above the panic. "Stand with them. Fight with them." Valorans raised their unfamiliar rifles, hands shaking. The first volleys were clumsy, but then Winter's words echoed in their memory. "Use the fear. Let it sharpen you." And something ancient stirred within the gentle species. In the blood-lit corridors of the Intrepid, Reed fought side by side with his people, his blade drawn when his rifle emptied. Every Craxus that fell left another behind, but still the humans held, and for the first time, Valorans fired alongside them. The galaxy was learning a lesson that night. Deathworlders were not the only ones who could adapt. On the bridge of the Craxus flagship, Commander Vrock leaned forward, tusked grin spreading as he watched the boarding craft latch onto human vessels. To him, the battle was already won. The prey would panic, the Deathworlders would scatter, and soon both humans and Valorans would be fodder for his holds. But then, reports began to shift. Resistance. Heavy. A Craxus officer stammered. "Losses. Unacceptable," Vrock snarled. "Unacceptable? Against prey?" He demanded visuals. The feed flickered, showing humans fighting like demons in metal corridors. They moved with a predator's grace, unafraid of blood, tearing through armored Craxus warriors with rifles, blades, even their bare hands, and worse. Valoran stood with them. Fragile, delicate beings who should have cowered now fought shoulder to shoulder with the monsters they had summoned. Their shots grew steadier, their formations tighter, their fear sharpened into something lethal. For the first time in years, Vrock felt a shiver of unease. The humans were not prey. They were predators, born of a harsher crucible than even the Craxus homeworld. And these fragile allies were learning from them. "Commander," another officer rasped, "they adapt too quickly. If the fleet continues this engagement, silence." Vrock roared, though the echo of doubt gnawed at him. Through the viewport, human vessels closed ranks around the Valoran station like wolves circling their den. The fleet that should have shattered was holding, every ship ablaze in the dark. Vrock's grin faltered. For the first time, he considered retreat, not from weakness but from survival instinct. These were no ordinary foes. These were Deathworlders, and they were teaching others how to be the same. The Craxus fleet hung fractured, its once proud formation torn apart by human ferocity and Valoran resolve. Yet Commander Vrock refused to yield. His final order thundered across the comms. "If we are to fall, we fall as predators. All ships, strike!" The last wave of Craxus vessels ignited their drives, plunging toward the human Valoran line in a suicidal charge. On the Intrepid's bridge, Captain Reed clenched his fists. "They're desperate. This is it." Admiral Torres's voice cut through the chaos, calm but sharp as steel. "Hold the line. Break them here, and the galaxy will never fear them again." The battle that followed was a storm of fire and steel. Human ships locked into phalanx formations, shielding the Valoran station with their own hulls. Valorans, once paralyzed by fear, now manned weapons with steady hands, their volleys carving through Krax's craft like hunters who had remembered their claws. Reed's crew fought until their rifles overheated, until their blades dulled, until their lungs burned. And then suddenly the storm broke. One by one, the Krax's ships fell silent, erupting into blossoms of flame. Their flagship cracked, burning before vanishing into the void. Silence followed, heavy and unreal. On the station, Trell looked out across the stars, voice trembling. They came to teach us fear, and instead they gave us courage. Reed allowed himself a rare smile. Humans had not only survived, they had forged allies. The Valorans had stepped from innocence into strength. The galaxy had changed that day. And from the ashes of battle, a new truth spread. Deathworlders were not monsters to be feared. They were shields to be trusted. The dawn of an alliance had begun.